Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psychreg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Berney Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back. Richard, today we're going to continue talking about the workplace, and we're going to talk about how to balance work and life. Now, I think it's important that we say that when we're talking about work-life balance, you know, work is part of your life, but we're talking about
part
work.
of your life.
Yeah. Well, you know, but work and then non-work times is really what we're talking about.
Because in the earlier this week, we were talking about anxiety in the workplace, rudeness in the workplace, incivility in the workplace. Now we're talking about how to achieve some balance.
Right.
Now we're moving in a little bit different direction over the next 2 days.
Right. And it's important because this podcast is posting on Thanksgiving. And so you know, most of you, if you're listening to this on the day that it comes out, most of you are off of work today. Many of you may be wishing that you were at work or thinking that you should be at work, but this should be a day that you have off and that you are maybe striving for some of that balance between work and your work life and your non-work life.
Right, and it's a time when most families, when most of us look back and say, what do I have to be thankful for? And you sort of reset some priorities. You're going to do that now. We're going to do it again in about a month. Right. With New Year, you know, we start making those resolutions. So it's a time of year where we do think about things. And one of the things we do want to encourage you to think about is how to regain some balance between your work life and your personal life. Because one of the insidious influences that's been creeping into our lives over the past decade, maybe, about the past decade, is the effect that technology has had on the amount of time we spend working. Right. Okay. Right. I can remember in the Industrial Revolution. I don't remember the Industrial Revolution, but
man, that would open the door for so many. Just wait.
No,
I will store that memory decks.
The people in my neighborhood, mostly men worked. Okay, this was a couple generations ago. Men worked, women stayed at home. Those men would all return home at about 5 o'clock. Right. And they would have this life from 5 o'clock until the next morning. They were there every weekend. I didn't know anybody who worked on weekends, except people who worked in steel mills that were open 24 hours a day. They couldn't shut them down, so somebody had to be working. But by and large, people, all the men in my neighborhood came home at 5 o'clock. We all then went home at 8. Okay? So it's a very different kind of schedule than we have today. Right. And one of the reasons is because of the type of work we're doing today and the effect that technology has had. Yeah.
Unlike your early adult life in the Industrial Revolution, now during the technical revolution, you're right. We are much more plugged in and engaged and connected all the time.
That's right.
And we talk about this with kids, with social media and all those kind of things. But, you know, how many of you listening to this, how many of you check your email at night? How many of you check
I want you to say that again. I mean, we talk about our children being addicted to their cell phones, that they're on them too much, that they're on these devices, that they're playing these things. Stop for a moment and think about what these devices are doing to your work life.
Right. Yeah. They extend the workday significantly. And you are, you know, many times doing work outside of work hours. That's right. But it just is a natural, normal, regular thing that you're doing. You're not even thinking about the fact that you're working.
And that's one of the points that the author wants to make. That's why I refer to it as an insidious transformation, because we're not even aware that it's occurring.
Right. Yeah, this is from an article from Psychreg.org, our blog, called Work-Life Balance, Why It's Important and How to Achieve It. Right. And it's from earlier this month, because but it's it's something that could have been written this month or something back in, in a previous podcast this week. We were talking about, you were talking about working in the, as a consultant back in the 90s. This is the same thing that was going on.
Right.
It was building then, it was growing at that time, but it's becoming more and more pervasive of a problem.
Right. I think the defining line or sentence, if you will, is, there was a time, and we've talked about this with television. In the early days of television, the television stayed in the living room.
Right.
Okay. And then we started to get TVs in bedrooms, but they still stayed in rooms. They were too big. You couldn't haul them around. Now your TV can be in your back pocket.
Right.
Loaded with movies.
Right.
That heretofore you had to go to a theater to see. Then you could watch them on TV. Now you can watch them on your cell phone.
Right.
So, and it's the same with our office. There was a time when, boy, I can remember when you left your office, and you couldn't do anything until you got back the next morning.
Right.
Then they developed a laptop.
Right.
That you could carry back and forth.
Yeah.
And that changed everything because now you could bring your laptop home and work on it. Now you can take your cell phone home.
Right.
Okay.
And it's so funny because I had not thought about it until you just mentioned it. But back in the early 90s, just after I graduated high school, I was working at a Blockbuster Video, right? And even then, we had hundreds of movie titles and all that kind of stuff in as VHS, but they were so expensive. Right. People rented them because they were incredibly expensive. I remember, there were some that it would cost $100
for the a single
just
copy.
for a VHS tape.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now for sometimes for as little as a couple of dollars, you can have it downloaded on your phone.
Right.
And just carry it everywhere with you. So.
Right.
So yeah, not that movies are directly related to work, but the idea again is that you have all of this technology here with you all the time, everywhere you go, that completely pulls you into your work life without you even realizing maybe that you're involved in your work life.
I had a young man in his probably middle 20s, somewhere between 24 and 27 or 28. Who said one time, about a year ago, I guess, that he's not sure that he even needs a computer anymore because he can do everything with his cell phone. Yeah. And as cell phones get larger, I guess there's a new iPhone 10 coming out. I don't know whether they're larger or smaller. Are they?
It's out already.
It's out?
Yeah, it's about the same size.
Well, you have to order
It's
them.
different, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're larger. And so as the screens get a little bit larger, and I guess iPads are not as popular as they used to be. Too big or something.
Yeah.
And so people are going to, there's your entire life. It's on your cell phone.
Right.
There's your office and your entertainment and everything. And you bring it with you.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's happened is you bring your work life with you.
Yeah.
Now, when you go on vacation, you're expected to stay connected.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. So this, that continued connectedness to the work life, to your work life, has an impact on your overall well-being. It has an impact on your relationships, on your family, on your life in the community, on everything that you're doing. And so it's important. The purpose of the focus of today's podcast is on, how are you to find a balance between these two things?
That's right, because as you spend more time in your work life, you spend less time in your personal life. Personal life is family life. Right. So be aware of that, the insinuation of your work life into your personal life, and what can you do about it?
Right.
What we like about this article is they give you specific tips about what you might do to counteract.
Right. Because, and we'll talk more about this in the podcast for tomorrow.
Right.
But the idea is that we think, well, we'll be more productive if we stay plugged in. If we work more, we'll be more productive. And that's not really the case.
That's right.
So, but we'll talk about that one.
I said that to you the other day. We talk about that all the time. You and I do. And I've said to you that I can feel my productivity going down. And part of the reason is too much of each day is spent working, and you just drain your batteries. We talked about it earlier in the week.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So, some tips and strategies for finding a better balance in work life and non-work life. And the first thing is to have clear endpoints to your day, to your work day. Yeah, to your work day, not to your day, because that's when you go to sleep, but to your work day. And
I thought about you when I read that one.
Well, as you were saying before, back in the day,
Right.
it was 5 o'clock.
That's right. When you left your job site or your office, your day ended.
Right.
There was nothing you could do about it because the phone was in the building.
Everything stayed at the office.
Nobody called you at home.
Right.
Unless you were a emergency room, unless you were a physician.
Right. But then that would be a pager,
Right.
or something like that. And
I don't know how they must have had your home phone number.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, I don't know. So, but having a clear end to your workday is really important.
I think that's absolutely essential.
Yeah.
If it's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or at some point, I know that I go home now and at some point in the evening I turn my phone off.
Right.
So it's not just the end of my workday, it's the end of my availability. And I feel like my life is mine at that point, even
Right.
if it's just for an hour.
And that's the second thing on the list here, and that's it's okay for you to occasionally be unavailable
Right.
to the outside world. So unplugging completely for
Right.
for
Don't be
a period of
afraid.
time.
Don't be afraid to be unavailable. It's okay.
Right. Everybody will make it. They'll be
Yeah.
fine. The third thing here is to start with making some small changes.
Right.
One of the big issues, and we've talked about this a number of times before, is that when we're trying to make changes, we try to go from 0 to 100
Right. Immediately. Right.
No, take small graduated steps to your ultimate goal. So it may mean, instead of checking your email throughout the day, throughout the evening, I
Right.
guess, having a specific couple of times or one time in the evening,
Right.
I'm going to check my email for the last time at 7 o'clock, and that's going to be the end. Or something to that effect, just working gradually to your ultimate goal of not checking at all after 5 o'clock.
We talked earlier in the week about civility in the workplace, and we said to people, you be civil, you do the right thing. I'll bet if you tell people who do get in touch with you, say, look, contact me before 9 because I turn my phone off at 9 o'clock.
Right.
That's setting a positive example for everybody. Everybody should be doing that. At
Right.
some point in the evening, turn your phone off.
Right.
You don't. Nobody should expect you
Right.
to be available 24 hours a day.
And I'll say, I once heard an ad by a very popular large law firm here in our area that said,
Yeah.
if your employer expects you to check email and respond to emails during times when you're off of work, you should be able to bill in
for
essence.
that.
That should count as work time. And so if you're in a position where you're required to check your email throughout the night, perhaps I guess if you're on salary, then that's incorporated in it. But otherwise, you should talk to your boss about that time,
Right.
and it should count. You should be reimbursed for that time that you're spending. It should not be on your personal time.
Or if you have family time,
Yeah.
your employer should respect your family time.
Absolutely, sounds like a discussion that you should have with your employer, and hopefully they'll be civil. Going back to the previous. So the next thing is to engage in mindful thinking. And again, this is the idea of what am I giving up by checking my email?
Right.
What am I giving up by being engaged in work while I'm at home? Being mindful about what's going on around you at any given time.
Right.
Yeah, that's important. I thought you were...
I was laughing about the next one because it's like, how do you
Have
do that?
fun.
Have fun when you get off.
After work, yeah. But this is, to me, this all comes down to have some plans. When we go home and we have, for lack of a better word, when we go home and we have nothing else to do.
Right.
And so you're going to go home and you're just going to kind of sit and watch TV. I know what I think, and I think I'm just wasting time.
Exactly.
I could be doing something productive. I could be working on podcasts. I could be, researching some things for future podcasts or something, writing chart notes or whatever. As soon as we're thinking that way, we're pulling ourselves back into the work day.
Right.
So separate that by having some activities, having some things to do in the evening.
Yeah, figure out what...
Not that you have to have something to do every evening.
No, but think about what you want to do when you get home. Even if it's to clean a room or rearrange a shelf or cook something different, so that you can have a little bit of fun and make that separation. Right. You need a clear demarcation between work and home.
Yeah. The next thing is to deliberately and intentionally take time off.
Yeah.
Now, we used to call that vacation, but we don't really do that anymore. We are notorious here in the United States for not taking advantage of vacation that we are afforded, that we're given even in our workplace packages and employment packages. We are notorious for not taking time off that we are due. So take that time
Go ahead and take it.
go do something.
But take a break.
Yeah.
Don't take your computer and your phone and your iPad
Right.
and plan to have a working vacation.
And it doesn't have to be
It doesn't have to be a long time.
It doesn't have to be a week long. It doesn't even have to be 3 days. Take a Friday off and
Right.
spend a 3-day weekend doing something. You know,
Exactly.
even if
But-
it's just
but
something
have
fun
a
at
plan.
home. Yeah.
But you have to have a plan. You
Right.
can't just, I'm going to take the day off and not have a plan
Right.
for those 3 days, because
Yeah.
otherwise I can tell you what you're going to be doing.
Right. And the last thing is to have a strong social network.
Right.
And that's going to help you with those plans.
That's right.
You know, if you have good, strong social networks,
Go
they're
with-
going to help keep you engaged in doing things. You're going to help them by having plans, and they're going to help you by having plans. And so
Right.
engage in that social relatedness.
Right.
That's going to help you.
Did you notice that most of these suggestions, the last one is always rely on others,
Yeah.
have a social network,
Getting help
from
Yeah.
others. You got to stay connected to other people.
Yeah.
You know,
We try to do so much of this stuff by ourselves.
Right.
And that's silly.
no, not necessary.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of getting help and
Yes.
being connected, our Patreon page is up and running. We're still working on some of the artwork and everything, but we wanted to get it out there so you can learn more about what we're doing, what we're planning to do, and if you are able, willing to offer any support or assistance,
Right.
we would so very much appreciate it.
Right.
All the information is on at patreon.com/thementalbreakdown. The idea is just to try to raise some support so that we can get somebody else in here to spend the hours a week in editing some of the work that we're doing and focusing on creating better product for you and more product for you as we want to expand to offer more courses
Right.
and videos and experiences for everybody.
Right. We want to do more, and we want to do some things better.
Right.
What the podcast, there are ways that we want to enhance the experience for everybody.
Right.
But we just don't have the time ourselves, because we do this ourselves. We don't have the time ourselves to do it. So we're
Right.
looking for some additional support so we can hire a videographer or
Right.
somebody who can help us with the technical aspects
Right.
and do some of this work, take some of the work off us, so that we then can do these other things. So it's not buying free time for us,
Right.
but it's freeing up time so we can do some of the other things we want to do.
Absolutely.
So-
Another way that you can help is by sharing us with others. So, writing a review, rating us on iTunes, sharing our iTunes or YouTube page with other people, getting more subscribers, because all of that increases our visibility and it increases those that are engaged, and all of that helps with this mission of getting information out there and letting us know what you like and don't like
right.
and what we can do to make things better. All of that is really critical to getting us where we would like to be, so that we can provide you what you would like to have.
Right. Right.
Ooh, it's
Wow.
good stuff.
Okay.
So,
Sound
all
good.
right, that is it for today. So until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.